Medical malpractice is a little tricky for some people to understand because when someone comes to our office with a potential medical malpractice case, usually it's something bad has happened to someone they love very much, and there's a lot of emotion involved to it. And the standard in a medical malpractice case, because most people come, by the time they've come to me, they've spoken to other people and other doctors. And what's difficult to explain in a medical malpractice case, it is medical negligence. But medical negligence is not just a doctor who was a little sloppy on something. It's not a doctor who maybe has 5 ways to do an operation and he picks the 5th way, which most doctors say would have been the worst way, and they wouldn't have done it that way, but that's not negligence. That's just a bad doctor. So it's a little tricky to figure out, and explain that maybe it's not negligence, maybe you just had a bad doctor. And there's also what's called a risk of the procedure. And a risk of the procedure is that if something happens statistically, let's say in 1 out of 100 cases, even the best heart surgeon loses a patient on the table and might not have done anything wrong because statistically 1 out of 100 cases somebody dies. That means it's just very unfortunate. And that's very hard to explain to somebody whose loved one is injured or doesn't make it through surgery. So it's also the most challenging cases, I find, because we have to cross-examine doctors in their field of expertise. So we have to retain many experts and have them review the files and go through things. In my office, we have a registered nurse practitioner who reviews our files for us and who's on our staff. Things that are medical malpractice, there's some things that we call like a prima facie case of medical malpractice. For example, you leave the scalpel inside the person and you sew up. Believe it or not, these things happen. There's certain things that in and of themselves are obviously malpractice. The difficulty in a malpractice case is that doctors' insurance policies give them the option to decide whether or not the case will be settled. And most doctors resist that because there's a registry of cases involving every doctor in the country. And it shows how many malpractice cases they have against them, how they were settled, or what the verdicts were. And they don't want that blemish on their record. So they resist, and you have to assume that you're in for a battle when you do a malpractice case. Again, however, it is very rewarding and challenging and satisfying when you're successful in helping out somebody who was badly injured by a doctor. The medical malpractice defense bar is a very limited bar because there's only a few insurance carriers in New York State, approximately 3 or 4, that defend doctors. And those carriers make sure that their attorneys that work for them, be it in-house or outside counsel, we call it, don't do any other kind of cases and will not bring malpractice cases against the doctors or any doctor. So you're up against a formidable opponent because you have to remember they have a doctor, the defendant, whispering in their ear all the time, all day and night if they want it, exactly why he feels that he wasn't, guilty and exactly why he shouldn't be settling this case, etc. For us as a plaintiff's bar, as I said, we have a nurse on our staff, and we have a litany of experts that I've used over the years in all different fields, and we get their opinions, and we, make a decision. We have to research the medical libraries and the websites, and we make a decision that this is exactly why this case is a case of malpractice, and we're going to go ahead and take a verdict on it.